So it is January 12th, 2018. Welcome to Let's Talk Native on the LTN Radio Network. This program breaks all the rules for Native radio. No buffalo speeches, no mystic healing, no special Indian prayers. We tackle the real issues facing Native people. We look back at our glorious and our grave history, a tough look at where we're at now, and look forward to our ongoing battles for sovereignty and autonomy. Let's Talk Native is produced in association with Iroquois Promotions on the LTN Radio Network, streaming live from the Cattaraugus territory of the Seneca Nation, and simulcast and rebroadcast on the Gwe, CKWE in Tandanega. You can find us at www.ltnradionet.com. And, of course, we are streaming live on Facebook. On my group page, Let's Talk Native with John Kane. And, of course, that live stream is being shared on many, if you will, other group pages. So, yeah, if you come across it, check it out. I do have some things to talk about. Obviously, the obvious thing in the news is our comments, racist comments from Donald Trump, which I am happy to talk about. But there are other things. But let me introduce myself. I'm John Kane. I'm the show's host and producer. I'm joined in studio by Jake Proud, who is manning our board, our soundboard, and our cameras for both the Facebook live stream and for the video that will ultimately be put on our YouTube channel, which is Let's Talk Native TV. I encourage you to subscribe to that channel so you can catch not only the videos of our shows, but also some shorter videos and some more direct videos on various topics. We've done a variety of them already. One of them in particular was about racism, and we're going to talk about some of that today. Our studio engineer is Kelly McMillan, and I'm going to give her some props for the setup that we have here and for the technical support we get. Hey, the opening song was Casino Dreams, and let me talk about Casino Dreams. Now, granted, it sounds like the whole thing about wannabes and everything else, but apparently the wannabe is an Italian fellow who lives in Albany at the time, and it wasn't his great grandfather; it was his own dad who paved some of the way. Mario and Andrew, of course, Prince Mario and Prince Andrew. I'm talking about. They had some casino dreams, and the casino dreams are turning into nightmares, and I'm going to talk about that. Obviously, as I framed this show, I talked about the language that Trump used to describe countries of origin of people that he doesn't want to see as immigrants. They happen to be people of color. I'm surprised he didn't just stop short of and call them, N-words and and other derogatory words for people from Salvador. But this is the guy. This is the guy that people have in office, and so we're gonna we'll talk about that. But it isn't just s-holes in terms of countries. Apparently, there are some s-holes that in the form of casinos that exist in New York State, and that's what I want to talk about first. Obviously, we're engaged in a battle with New York State. On all kinds of issues all the time, predominantly tax issues and everything else. But the Seneca Nation is embroiled in a pretty good conflict with the state of New York over gaming revenue. But I'm not going to talk about Seneca gaming revenue this time. And so when I'm talking about these, and again, I'm going to use the word these shit casinos. They are not native casinos. They are the state casinos. So I've got an article in front of me here that basically talks about, well, first off, part of the story is about its Moody's Investor Service has dropped the investor rating from Del Lago Casino, the state's flagship casino, a $440 million facility. They've dropped it from stable to negative. And the reason they've done that is because this place can't even handle its own debt service. I mean, it is performing so badly. Look, it's not just about not meeting its projections. It's not even meeting enough revenue to pay down debt. They're making enough to pay their interest on their debt, but that's not really what you're in this. This is gaming. This is supposed to be the this is like the golden goose, right? I mean, and isn't that what everybody said about Native people? Oh yeah, they've been given this huge gift. No, that's not really what it is. But when these states enter into this fray, they don't do so good. So let me. I'm just gonna go through. Let me read a little of of this article here. So bear with me. Where this place is located on exit 41, near the Waterloo exit, in right off the state thruway. I mean, it when you pass it, it is this huge facility. It looks like this huge facility right on the edge of the thruway. But the town is called, it's Tyre. Honestly, I don't know if that's called Tyre, New York, or Tyree, New York. I don't know what it is, but anyway, Tyre. And that's a little town in New York. It's not far from where the outlet malls are, along the thruway, just across the street, I guess. But let me read this. And this is from a website called nyup.com. So the failure of the 11-month-old Del Lago Resort and Casino to generate as much revenue as expected has prompted a major credit rating service to downgrade its financial outlook. Moody's Investor Service has dropped Del Lago's rating from stable to negative. In its report, Moody's warns that Del Lago's poor performance could keep it from paying off the debts it owes to its lenders. Moody's does believe the casino can continue to pay the interest on those loans, at least for the next year, despite the fact that Del Lago opened on time and on budget and has substantially grown total gaming revenues generated in its primary market. The property revenue ramp up is well below Moody's expectations. Keith Foley, a senior vice president at Moody's, said in the ratings report, given Del Lago's current performance, Moody's is of the view that without a substantial improvement in revenue, Del Lago will not be able to achieve a level of performance that can support its existing debt capital structure. That's not good. Moody's analysis shows that at least $100 million shortfall in the first year revenue for Del Lago. I mean, that's a lot of money. It is estimated that Del Lago would ramp up to a $250 million in net revenue in its first year. But Del Lago has consistently reported gross revenue of about $12.5 million per month. This was all from the Moody's report. At this rate, Del Lago's gross gaming revenue will only hit about $150 million, and even less in net revenue. Moody's also reported that the casino's debt is above. Moody's also reported that the casino's debt is above the ratings agency's downgrade trigger. So it's negative, but it isn't. It can still get worse, folks. The $440 million Del Lago Casino is owned by Rochester developer, whatever. It is one of the 4 new non-Indian owned full-service casinos authorized to operate in upstate New York in 2014 and 2015. The 3 that have opened in the last 13 months are all failing to achieve the first year's revenues that they projected in their application for the state licenses. Del Lago opened between Syracuse and Rochester at thruway exit 41 in February. Rivers Casino and Resort in Schenectady opened the same month. Tioga Downs in Nichols, west of Binghamton, converted from one of those racetrack casinos, or what they were forced to call racinos, a harness track with slot machines essentially, to a full casino with tables and table games, poker and slots. That opened in December of 2016. So that's been open, just over a year, and the other 2 are just approaching their 1-year anniversary dates. Now, the 4th and the largest of the new non-Indian casinos, Resorts World Catskills, is scheduled to open near Monticello in March. So these 3 are already experiencing an oversaturation of the gaming market. I mean, already experiencing it, and the big one hasn't even opened yet. I mean, all 3 of the new casinos already operating have failed to meet revenue predictions they made in their bid for the state license. Analyses of records provided to the State Gaming Commission show a combined shortfall of more than $200 million for the first year. Many observers, including Tioga Downs owner, have contended that the upstate casino market is already saturated. In addition to the new casinos, upstate is home to casinos operated by the Senecas, Mohawks, and Oneidas, plus several. I mean, I think there's like 11 racetrack/slot operations known as racinos. The Oneida Nation, which already operates a large full-service Turning Stone Casino and Resort in Verona, and a smaller, it's almost like a strip mall kind of casino in Chittenango, New York, has announced it will open up another little place, smaller place in a little town called Bridgeport, which is the west side of Madison County, not far from Syracuse, on March 1st. So that's more saturation coming. Let's see. Moody's itself in 2016, in a 2016 rating of Del Lago, predicted it would cannibalize other upstate casinos. Well, apparently they're the ones being cannibalized by the existing facilities, as it turns out. Again, let me put some of this in perspective. The Seneca Nation has two full-scale. Their flagship facility is in Niagara Falls, obviously, and most of you listening to the show know this. Their flagship facility is in Niagara Falls. Large facility, hotel. In a tourist destination already. Their second largest facility is a full size resort and casino on their territory, which means it has a little bit lower overhead, I guess, just because of where it is in Allegheny on the considered their address considered Salamanca, which is on the Allegheny territory of Seneca Nation, and their third, which is probably the most efficient, which is not a grand casino with hotels and some of those other amenities in terms of a big event venue or conference venue, is in Buffalo, and that's the Buffalo Creek Casino. That actually probably generates dollar for dollar. On a ration basis, the most profit. But those are three major facilities. Two of them in major cities in Western New York, and one on the territory. Now, the Seneca Nation also has two major facilities that are Class 2 gaming in terms of bingo halls with electronic games, and the one actually has a poker room. Now, add to that again the state's racinos. One of the points of controversy for the Seneca Nation has been the fact that their so-called exclusivity zone was trampled on by the state by opening up three of their racetracks as casinos. And look, yeah, we can call them racinos now, but that's not what they were calling them. They put slot machines in these horse tracks because the horse racing industry is dying. It actually is dead. It's it's on artificial life support through slot parlors, and they put them in Seneca's exclusivity zone. And there's three of them. There's the Hamburg racetrack, which is still in the Buffalo market, clearly it's a Buffalo suburb. It's at the fairgrounds, Erie County Fairgrounds. So there's a Hamburg Raceway and Gaming, or whatever they call it. I don't know. And then a little farther east is in Batavia Downs, which is another failed horse track that they've turned into a slot parlor facility. And then another racetrack, Finger Lakes Racetrack, has been converted into, and that one's failing miserably too. Now, if you go farther into Oneida territory, only 3 miles away from Turning Stone Casinos, the Turning Stone Casino, is Vernon Downs, which is another failed horse track that they converted to in fact, that might have been one of the first ones they converted into slot parlors, as I recall. I could be wrong, but I think so. And that one is doing so poorly that the state came back and lowered the revenue percentage that Vernon Downs has to pay to the state just so it can stay open. So I mean, excuse me if I sound like I'm gloating here, but I mean, how crazy is it as the state is trying to fight the Seneca Nation for a percentage for something that they are entitled to nothing for? They're actually reducing the payments that at a place like Vernon Downs, and in all likelihood, you watch, they're going to do it for their casinos too, not just for their racinos. But if Del Lago can't pay its debt service, do you think New York State's going to let that thing fail? Nah. They'll drop their percentage down. So, so the private industry, for that private business, and keep in mind, these are not state-run casinos. These are state licensed casinos. They operate under the authority of New York State, but they're shareholders here. This is a private industry, and they are going to be catered to by the state of New York. I mean, Finger Lakes was doing so badly that, from what I understood, there were offers being or overtures, I should say, being made to the Seneca Nation for them to buy it out, from them to take over the Finger Lakes gaming facility, which I think is a terrible idea. Yeah, take over the failing enterprises that the state's involved in. That's a good idea. So here's what the state did. And again, we can get into a whole bunch of puns, but they rolled the dice on this thing, and it hasn't worked out. And I said this from the start. There is a completely different model for native gaming versus state gaming, and it's really this simple. The Seneca Nation does not rely on its own people to be the customers. I mean, the Seneca Nation is getting money from people who come from outside the Seneca Nation, who come onto the territories to gamble. Most of them are New York residents. Now, their people can gamble, and they do. I mean, Senecas go into the gaming facilities. I mean, they're not prohibited from it, but the revenue is revenue that is coming into the Seneca Nation from outside the Seneca Nation. That is not the model that New York State has. New York State, their casinos are essentially like a backhanded tax. And they aren't just cannibalizing the gaming industry. If you own a movie theater or a restaurant, how's your business doing next to any of the casinos? Everybody, I heard a lot of noises when the Seneca Nation opened up the one in Niagara Falls, and how much it was going to hurt some of the businesses. Although the Niagara Falls has benefited immensely from the Seneca Niagara Casino. But if you're in an area that doesn't have the support of a tourism industry already, or a major city, I mean, Buffalo is, I think Buffalo's the second largest city in the state. But if you're in the middle of nowhere, somewhere between Rochester and Syracuse, a little too far for somebody to say, hey, let's jump in the car and go down to the casino and, blow $100. No, they are in a tourist destination, and they're in the middle of freaking nowhere. Great idea. Really good idea. Look, I understand that the hope is that the model for Monticello, which used to have a tourism industry years and years ago, that might change. I mean, there is only one place in New York State that if you built a casino, you would be bringing in, well, I take it back. There's two places. There's two places in New York State that if you built a casino, there's a good chance that you could have some gamblers come in who are not from New York State. One of them was Niagara Falls, seventh wonder of the world, Niagara Falls. And there's a good chance you might get some Canadians or some tourists from who came to see the falls who dropped by. The other is the obvious one, which is New York City. New York City has no casinos. They have no racinos. They have no slot machines in New York City. Now, you can go out to Long Island, and you can go to a couple of other horse tracks in the general region, but still not real close by. I mean, they didn't want to tarnish the image of New York City by building a casino there. They got a guy named Trump there who failed miserably in the gaming industry. He would have loved to have built a casino in New York City, but that didn't happen. So New York's model for gaming is to suck more revenue out of its own residents. I mean, there's no destination between Rochester and Syracuse that high rollers are going to come flying in on their private jets to land there to gamble $1 million. I mean, it's just not going to happen. I mean, these things are all failing. Look, I'm not the only one who predicted this failure. Obviously, Moody's predicted that Del Lago itself would cannibalize other upstate casinos. And it turns out, look, the Seneca Nation has been impacted. There's no question about it. Turning Stone has impacted. But, Halberter's out there still building more gaming facilities, trying to keep or take more market share away from Del Lago. That place is failing. And I don't even know, unless the state gives them complete forbearance on their state revenue that is supposed to come from there, I don't know how they're going to make it. And if they do that, And frankly, if you're a New York State resident, if you're a citizen of the state of New York, you got to ask the question that why did we get in gaming if we're going to end up giving what these guys said they were going to give to the state back? I mean, why is Vernon Downs? I mean, if it's a failed track, then let it be a failed track, because it isn't helping the economy. None of these things. Yeah, there's some jobs that were created with these things, but in the end, these things are sucking money out of a region. And where does most of that money go? A bunch of it goes to Albany, and the rest of it goes to a gaming corporation. Here's the other difference between the model of the native gaming model and the state gaming model. Every dollar that comes into the Seneca Casino that is retained, that isn't gone out and payback. Some of it went to the states. It went to the state. I mean, with a revenue sharing plan. But it all ultimately is going to get spent right back here in Western New York. Why? Because this is where the Senecas live. They don't have stakeholders from outside. You know, this isn't, you know, something, a company that is trading on Wall Street. This is the Seneca Nation. And all of the Seneca Nation programs, all of the Seneca Nation services and you know, everything is money spent here in Western New York. The same can't be said for these gaming corporations. Yeah, the guy from Rochester who is essentially the owner, I guess, or developer of Del Lago. But there are shareholders there. Some of that money is being sucked out of the area, out of those, you know, those casinos are consuming that money, and that money is going to shareholders, wherever those shareholders are. And it's going wherever they spend their money. I mean, does the owner of Del Lago spend all his money in Rochester? I doubt it. And in fact, I'll bet a lot of his investors are from New York City. So that's money that not only is being sucked out of central New York to Albany in terms of, you know, that 40 or 45 or whatever the percentage is that Albany charges in terms of taxing these casinos, but the rest of it's going to the shareholders. And these shareholders aren't just a bunch of, you know, mom and pops sitting around Rochester, you know, waiting to spend their money at the local grocery store. No, that's not. You know, and again, these things are not just cannibalizing and saturating the gaming market. They're cannibalizing and saturating all entertainment, whether it's a movie theater, whether it's a live theater, whether it's a museum, whether it's a restaurant, you know, whatever it is, somebody's making a choice on what they're going to spend their $100 worth of entertainment dollars on. Are they going to spend it on something that's going to be culturally enriching, or are you going to go, you know, eat at the casino and lose lose the rest of the money that you have? And look, I know these things are meant for entertainment, but they are meant to be profitable. They are the machines are set, so yeah, you're going to win some money back, but most of it is going to be the casino makes the money. And I didn't just pull the curtain back here. That's just the way these things work. Especially the slot machines, which are the real, you know, money makers on these things. So, you know, look, I saw this article. My friend Cindy emailed it to me, and we've talked about this a lot. You know, the other casinos, right, you know, kind of in her neck of the woods out in Schenectady. My train stops right there at the Schenectady station every time I'm a trip down to New York and back, and I look over at that thing, and you know, I'm thinking there's another, you know, false promise. There's another, you know, false promise. There's another S-hole, as there's, I'm still not comfortable saying that. Not just on the microphone. I don't talk that way, but I guess since the president can say that, you know, and look, we're going to talk about this next half hour, but just this idea that this kind of lewd conversation, think about where it can be applied. And I think the state's gaming facilities could earn that title. They are certainly not contributing. They are not the positive amenities that these communities hoped they were going to be. And I'll tell you, anybody who thought that this thing was going to, produce meaningful revenue for the state of New York, it didn't. It didn't, and it won't. The state is in such trouble financially. I mean, I don't know what I say, something like $4 billion in debt, going into the next year. And these casinos are their revenue projections, and this isn't what the state was going to get out of them. Their revenue projections are collectively $200 million off the mark. Now, keep that in mind, off the mark here. The state of New York was getting $120 million a year out of Seneca Gaming. That's how much Del Lago is making in total revenue for the year. Not net revenue, just gross revenue. So the amount the state was fleecing the Seneca Nation for $120 million and up to $150 million. In fact, it was close to $200 million at one point a year. That's how much this $400 million facility, $500 million facility, is generating in its first year. Completely off the mark. I mean, $100 million short. And that combined with the other two, a total of $200 million off the mark. So congratulations, Andrew Cuomo. Your casino dreams have just gotten wet. So, all right. When we come back, we're going to talk about countries that are being called assholes, and we're going to talk about immigrants that come from those countries that apparently are not very nice places, and we'll talk about why they're not nice places, who made them not nice places, and who else would qualify for that title. We'll talk about that when we come back. This is John Kane, and this is Let's Talk Native.
Your children in the classroom. English history. What do they teach about the Indians? Took us prisoner in your fight to be free. Only meant to know yourself. All the white lies only get bigger.
There was a song came on the radio, a guitar instrumental, and it changed everything.
Link Ray, it's rock and roll.
Rumble. Yeah, that's the one.
Rumble.
Hey, Rumble.
Rumble had the power to help me say, I'm going to be a musician.
And then I found out that he was an Indian.
The music that we know here in the United States is fully supported by input from Native and Indigenous people.
Seago, this is John Kane from WBAI's Let's Talk. Join me on January 31st at 7 p.m. at the Brooklyn Commons, 388 Atlantic Avenue in Brooklyn, as we kick off 2018 with a free screening of Rumble, the Indians Who Rocked the World. All right, thanks for coming back. Yeah, that's my promo. I will be screening Rumble in the city in Brooklyn. If any of you happen to be down there, I'd love to see you. I mean, it's always cool when I do my show in New York. Obviously, it streams on live like everything else. We do the Facebook Live. It's really neat when I get a call from either from back here. I got a call from Santa Barbara, California yesterday, and I've gotten calls from Carolinas and from Florida. So. I know there's people who listen around. I just figured I'd play the promo. I think this film is a powerful film. It's worth seeing. In fact, Jake Proud's going to join me on my trip to New York when I screen this film. Jake's first trip to New York City, so he'll get a trip out of it, and you'll get to see what we do down there, and gonna show him what that show's about, and maybe we'll learn some things as we do him back here. He can actually help me that day because I do the Facebook live stream there, and sometimes I'm fumbling to try to get everything done all together at once. Hey, the other thing I wanted to mention before I get into Dodard J. Trump. Thursday, or actually, I don't know if it was Wednesday or Thursday. I think it was the 11th, so it would be Thursday. Yesterday was the anniversary from 2013 when Matt and I just decided we were going to go to a I Don't Know More round dance at the Galleria Mall, and it turned into a bit of an incident. First, we had a crazy mall cop that was just losing his mind, and he called the Cheektowaga police, which already have a kind of a reputation for being abusive, and I got into a physical confrontation with the Cheektowaga police. And I got to tell you, my wife called me up after she saw the video that same night, and I didn't go right home after that. I'd gone to another event in Buffalo. My friend Nate Buckley was celebrating the charges being dropped against him from again another police violence thing. But so we had gone to this thing in Buffalo. So I get a call from my wife, and she's like ready to give me hell. She's like, "What are you doing, fighting with a police officer?" And I didn't fight with a police officer. I just got in his way. And then, as she's giving me hell on the telephone, Matt pulls up the video on his phone and he puts it up and shows it up to me. And I'm thinking, wow, I didn't remember being that physical with a police officer. Because the bottom line is, I was running interference. I wouldn't let the police come in to interfere with the singers and the drummers who were performing for this round dance. And there were hundreds. I mean, there was easily 500 people in a round dance, but there was probably 1,000 people gathered. I mean, this is, January 11th in 2013. And so I ran interference. He kind of brushed shoulders with me, and then he turned around and he grabbed me by my shirt. And like I said, I didn't quite remember it that way, but I grabbed him by his shirt too. And first I did one of those sweeping motions with your arm to kind of clear his grip. And then I pushed him back 3 steps and basically put him in his place, which is not something I recommend people do to police officers. I mean, like I said, this is the video capture. If you go to my Facebook group page, if you go to Let's Talk Native, I reposted Cindy Lou's video, and in fact, even another video it's a little blurry, but it's up close and personal. When you see it, you realize just how intense and how close up and how chaotic it really was. But Cindy's video is from the balcony, so it's an overview, and you look down and you see everything that transpires. Because not only do I the cop grabbed me, I grab him, play a little bit of grab ass, as they say, and, I push him around a little bit. He tried to walk around me, and I stepped in front of him twice. I mean, at one point, he actually started to reach down for pepper spray, and I leaned in, and I said, you don't want to do that. And I reasoned with him. Look, one of these videos was characterized as an attack by the police, and it was anything but. I mean, it was clearly they were going to come in and they were going to try to shut this thing down. I stopped them from shutting it down. Matt stopped it, and others. I mean, and frankly, all those people who came up, especially the women who came up and stuck their cell phone cameras in their faces and stuff like that, they all contributed to this thing. I didn't do this all by myself. I was just kind of the point of impact, so to speak. And again, somehow I got away with doing a little bit more than just resisting, but every step along the way, I was talking to the police officer, and in a matter of minutes, I went from having a physical conflict with a police officer who went there to have a physical conflict. I mean, he even had those, those riot gloves that are weighted, so when you punch something, and they're like loaded gloves, like, not brass knuckles, but they make gloves. He had at one point when we shook hands, I could feel that he had these weighted gloves on. So this is a guy who, was thinking he was probably going to lay me open with those damn things, But in a matter of minutes, I went from having a physical conflict with the police officer, with having him smiling and joking and leaning back and saying, and I just convinced him, look, this is called a flash mob round dance. That means as quickly as it started, it'll stop, and we'll be out of here. Half these people are buying something while they're in the mall, and Matt told the police officer, look, you're going to spend more time doing the paperwork on this thing than it'll take for us to be done and out of here. And as we left, there was like a line of cars. There were like 9 police cars. They brought in like Williamsville police, and I don't know, but there are other police forces that called in. They were really expecting to haul a bunch of us out of there. I mean, I told the police officer, I said, look, just be careful what you do here. You got over 500 people here, and they're not all just gonna sit back and let you, drag a bunch of us around. And I'm not going to let you just drag me around. Clearly I wasn't, because I didn't. But anyway, check out the video. It is kind of, it's a teachable moment for many people. I mean, I don't advise people get physical with police officers. I did, but I have to say, the reason I was able to get away with it was my demeanor and my reasonableness, even though it started out pretty intense. So, what I did demonstrate in that moment was that you can resist, but you got to be careful. You got to be careful how you do it, and you can resist and be effective. I stopped them from stopping us, and we all went about our way. No charges. I didn't, my wife hit me with one of those things that you say when you're an activist. You always say, just don't get arrested on a Friday, because you get arrested on a Friday and you're going to sit in jail till Monday. My wife even scolded me on the phone. She goes, and you did this on a Friday. You're not supposed to get arrested on a Friday. And I do know you're not supposed to get arrested on a Friday. Who plans these things for Friday nights? What are you guys thinking? But anyway, interesting event. It's it's one of my memories. I posted up as a throwback, I guess, for my Thursday throwback. But take a look at it. You'll see something that's interesting. And I'm not saying this just for hero worship. I got a lot of people who thanked me and wished me well and that kind of stuff, and for what I did there. But I got to tell you, there was no plan. Matt and I didn't go there to play security or anything else. In fact, we didn't even discuss anything. We just did what we did. It was instinct, and and I'm glad it worked out the way it did. And nobody was hurt. I mean, there was a couple of people that were there, our friends that were there, that are no longer with us. So that was one of those events that many of us were able to look back on. So I just wanted to mention that. All right. This half hour is going to go fast. I do want to thank my sponsors, Ross and Holly John and the RJE family of businesses, Eric White, ERW Enterprises, Ed Schindler. I owe Ed a call too. He made a contribution recently that I haven't talked to him yet, but I got to give him a thank you call. Cynthia Trice, Neville Spring, my good friend Sugar Montour, and the Seneca Nation, who is supported the show. I also want to thank Unity Stream and Apache Radio Net for providing our streaming. Thank again CKWE for their simulcast and rebroadcast, as well as Netroots Radio, Real People's Media, and Indigenous Resistance Radio for carrying Let's Talk Native in their networks. And all of you who share the shows, whether it's the Facebook videos, whether it's our SoundCloud audios, or whether it's our YouTube videos. I thank you all for doing that, and not just sharing them, but weighing in and participating in many of the conversations that we have, not just associated with the show, but with the things that we post on Facebook all the time. Racism is one of those things that I talk about a lot, and it's not because I'm consumed by it. to me, I talk about it because I want to call it out. And I don't think people understand what racism is. There is a lot of confusion about what is the definition of racism. And I'll say it again, as I've said it many times. Racism is not just racial bias. It's not just prejudice. It's not just discrimination. It's all of those things, but it has another component to it. In order for something to qualify as racism, racism is considered systemic. That means that there are systems in place by the dominant culture to ensure that racism continues. Now, in most of these dominant cultures, it's white people. And so the system is rigged. That's why most of Congress is white. Most of the CEOs are white. Most Republicans are white. I mean, there's a reason, and this is what is considered systemic. Now, the other thing that racism, in order for something to qualify as racism, again, it's not just about not liking somebody for the color of their skin. And it's not just about prejudging or being prejudiced against somebody for the color of their skin or their race or perceived race. It's more than that. It's about, and it's more about more than just making a general judgment. I mean, to say, oh, well, Asian people are better at math. Well, that's racial bias, and that's prejudice. To say that black people are good at basketball. I mean, or to question somebody because they're black. Why aren't you good at basketball? I mean, those things are racial biases, and they are prejudice because they are making a prejudgment based on race. But that's still not racism. Racism has a component in it that judges the superiority of people as if there is a genetic predisposition based on race that creates a hierarchy of intelligence, of humanity, of civilization, of all that stuff, but mostly intelligence. I mean, it's mostly geared that way. So in other words, it assumes that white people are superior, and it isn't just intelligence, but it assumes that white people are superior to people of color. I mean, and if you can convince even the lowest, and this is one of these quotes, if you can convince the lowest person on the scale who's a white man that they are still better than the best of any black man, then you've pulled something off. If you can convince a moron like Donald Trump that he is a superior human being to Barack Obama, and I'm not even saying Donald Trump is the worst of white people. I mean, he's down there, but there's some people living in some shacks in Alabama who are still convinced today that because they are white, they are better than a Martin Luther King or a Barack Obama or Morgan Freeman or whoever, LeBron James, whoever you want to throw into the mix. And that is what is racism. Racism is about superiority, and it's about systems in place to rig the game so that those people who are deeming themselves as superior will always have a benefit. And it's not just in the United States that exists. But so that's the definition of racism. So when you say that all people are racist, no, that's not true. You may be able to make an argument that many people of different, again, I don't even necessarily buy the whole race thing, but if you're going to, many people of perceived races, of different perceived races, have racial bias. Yeah, that's true. And you know what? If I'm a black man and I hate white people, hating a white person isn't the same thing as believing you're superior. Because some of that hate may come from the historical injustices that white people have inflicted upon you. So whether that's just or fair or good or right or proper, yeah, we can have that debate, but it's still not racism. Now, when you can say something like a country, whose people may be immigrating to the United States, that because you think that those people are inferior, and if you don't want those people because of their inferiority, and you're going to refer to their countries as shitholes, and that's Donald Trump's words, not mine. I would have no reason to say that compound word on the radio, on the air. I would have no reason to say that had Donald Trump not used that derogatory comment. Now, and I'll tell you something. And I'm always going to get a little bit of grief for saying words like this, but there are many people who think that Donald Trump is saying what everybody thinks already, and he's just courageous enough to say it. Everybody doesn't think that Haiti is a shithole. Is it problematic? Does it have problems? Yes. Are they plagued with hurricane seasons and earthquakes and all kinds of, yes. But it doesn't mean those people that are coming there are worthless. And it doesn't mean that their country is worthless. It was a tropical paradise before it was exploited by white people. Same with Puerto Rico, same with Hawaii, same with many of these places. Many of these beautiful places in Africa were gorgeous places before they were exploited for their minerals and their riches and their people. That is racist. And to call African countries or Haiti, or San Salvador, to call any of these countries shitholes. Let's back that up a little bit. So, if you're an immigrant to this country because you're leaving oppression, was Ireland a shithole? Was Scotland? Was Poland? Lots of Polish people here in the United States. Only second generation. So are these European countries shitholes? You know what? They may be. And you know why they were? Because they were destroyed by the people who lived there. Whatever's happened to places like Central America or Africa, it wasn't destroyed by the indigenous people there. And what's happened to native territories? You want to know where some shitholes are? Pine Ridge. And you know why? Because the United States created the conditions there. The United States has created shitholes. European imperialism and capitalism and expansion has created shitholes in places like India and Africa, Asia, South America. Look at these countries who still represent some of the largest parts of the population of the Western Hemisphere. Ireland, Scotland, Poland, Italy, Germany, Spain, England, Portugal. When these people were leaving those oppressive countries, and I'm not even going to get into some of the conflicts that are happening today, but for Donald Trump to say, we don't want people coming from shithole countries. We want them coming from places like Norway. We want white people. That's what he said. What he said is he wants white people to immigrate to the United States. Well, for one thing, Norway has socialized medicine. They have free education. They have a quality of life that is so superior to what the United States has in terms of education and just plain happiness, the happiness quotient. And most of the countries who share that, whether it's Denmark or whatever else, the reason that they have that is because they're socialized, which has been, isn't that what they said the Democrats want? They want socialism. They want to condemn the Bernie Sanders and how many people called Barack Obama a socialist? Barack Obama was anything but a socialist. In fact, some of my biggest criticisms against Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton is how Republican they were or are. But I'll tell you, when I hear people try to defend Donald Trump calling these countries by this kind of derogatory term, Donald Trump once said, I could shoot somebody in the middle of Fifth Avenue and the people would still love me. And you know what? If he did shoot somebody in the middle of Fifth Avenue, they wouldn't judge his actions. They would this would be the whole victim blaming, right? That person was a person of color. That person was a this or that person was that. People will look the other way on Donald Trump, whether he is in bed with Vladimir Putin, a porn star, or an underage girl. And you know why? Because here's the facts of it. Because there's a large segment of white America that fantasizes to do those things. That's why you have the sexual harassment thing. And that's not just, Republicans. I mean, it's Democrats too. I mean, that's why you have this. There's a large this is what the culture has devolved into. To whatever extent America has a culture, it ain't good, folks. But there's people who fetishize about underage girls and porn stars, and even this idea of rolling around with Vladimir Putin. People are envious. There are many white Americans living vicariously through Donald Trump. They fantasize about being Donald Trump, and they can say, "Well, he's one of us, and look what he can do. He can bed porn stars. He can, he can talk about grabbing pussy. He can collude with the Russians. He can actually have a country like the enemy, what was, considered a mortal enemy of the United States, help get him into office. And it's okay. Why? Because his following would, like he said, he could shoot somebody in the middle of Fifth Avenue and people would give him a pass. He can also mainstream racism. I mean, so his racist comments that he said during the campaign, he didn't lose votes. He lost some establishment support, but you know what? Once he won the election and the Republicans were still in control of the Senate and the House, oh man, they just rolled around this guy. They just, no, he's our man. We love this guy. It doesn't matter what kind of racist or ignorant or stupid comments this guy makes. But look at the history. Before you judge a country and you want to call it a shithole, look at how they were exploited by European countries and countries of European origins like the United States. Next week on Wednesday is the 125th anniversary of the illegal overthrow and occupation of the Kingdom of Hawaii. I'm wearing one of my Hawaiian shirts today. This is one of the shirts that the Hawaiians coined the expression protectors when they were trying to push back against a 30-meter telescope, and they're still fighting this being imposed upon them on what they consider their sacred mountain, Mauna Kea. But they're also fighting against, Fed Rec being designated a tribe because they know. I mean, maybe many Native people are okay with their condition, especially if you're in tribal government. Because if you look across most Native territories, the haves and have-nots are clear because there are the ones who work for the nation, who are in nation government, and then there's the poverty, including the drunkenness and the substance abuse and the teen pregnancies and the suicides and the depression. That's everybody else. So the people in power, the ones who can hobnob in Washington and have the president come visit with them and, hold American flags with them as they're running pipelines through your territories, the ones who can do that, hey, they're okay with this. When they're federally recognized as a leader of a people and they can get checks from the federal government, yeah, they're okay with that. But as a Native people, we don't do very well in that situation. For all the monies that people brag or complain about, I should say, going into Native territories in the U.S. and Canada, most of it ends up in the pockets of white people. Most of it never goes into any kind of direct service to Native people. So we know what a country like the United States has done. I mean, I know one of these guys posted up a picture from Detroit and said, is this a shithole? Or this isn't one, or whatever they said. This isn't a shithole, this is Detroit. Well, just because it's Detroit doesn't mean it hasn't been turned into a shithole. And who turned it into that? American capitalism. And you can blame unions, you can blame everything else, but it's policy. It's policy that drives the economy. It's policy that drives everything. And you know what? It's crashing. I've talked about it before. I talk about the four things that concern me most. First and foremost is climate change. The second thing that concerns me is the fact that so many of us are addicted to the capitalist system that the United States and Europeans have pushed forward. The exploitive system that is destroyed. It was behind slavery. It was behind genocide in so many of these countries, including ours. our territories, our people. Capitalism behind it. Yeah, the church plays a role, but the church was advancing capitalism. They looked at capitalism and in this hand in glove to the spread of Christendom. So, climate change and a collapsing economy are two of the things that I, they're real and they're going to happen. Now, the other two are social unrest. I mean, this kind of racist, this kind of divide that has been created in the United States because of Trump's attempt to mainstream racism and those that embrace him and that fantasize about what a great man he is for being able to get away with saying these racist comments. And of course, the third thing isn't just social unrest. It's world turmoil. It's conflict. It's war. It's government to government. It's government collapse. It's everything in the peak of violence, which can be perpetrated by governments. So you have social unrest, you have governmental chaos, you've got economic collapse, and climate change. I know I've talked about this before. I'm not, obviously we're almost out of time, but these are the things that Trump emulates. I mean, he rejects the notion of climate change. He has these policies to enrich the wealthy class, create more economic disparity. That's just promoting this idea of an economic collapse. And of course, he encourages everything from racism to cause problems both with from a social unrest issue, as well as being racist and bigoted towards other countries that can cause global conflicts. So, I heard somebody say that Donald Trump has turned the White House into an outhouse, and well, you know what an outhouse sits over? Shithole. This is John Kane. This is Let's Talk Native. We'll see you on Monday.
There's a guy, blonde hair, blue eyes, just about your age. Hasn't worked and does half as long as you. He makes twice as much money as you do. Well,